Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. One film that's came out recently that's got a lot of people talking, got a lot of different opinions going around about it. But for those who love it, they really love it, and then for those who really didn't like it, they really didn't like it. And that is the film Dune. Dune was once adapted by David Lynch in the 80s. It's a popular Frank Herbert novel. It's considered one of the kind of the best sci-fi novels out there. It's a big series of books. I think the first book in particular, is pretty long, but has basically it's very much a well talked about sci-fi novel in that community. And so now Denis Villeneuve, who worked on Blade Runner 2049 and Prisoners and some other big movies over the years, he's provided his own interpretation of the story. One thing that he's doing differently too than what David Lynch did in the 80s is he split the story into two parts. We're supposedly getting part two in 2023, and now we have part one here in 2021. But if you don't know the story of Dune, you guys, without spoiling anything, basically what the story is about of Dune and what part one basically covers for the most part in this specific film of Dune is Paul Atreides is played by Timothee Chalamet. He's a character that's born into a royal family that supervises this desert planet that watches an element called the spice. And it's important that the spice does not get into the wrong hands because it can help you live a really long life. It can make you very powerful and strong. It can kind of make the best of your senses and things like that. So it's very, very, very important that the spice does not fall into um, opponents or into a planet that the Atreides family does not get along with, or a family or group that wants to, that would ever might put war onto the Atreides family and things like that. So throughout the course of this film, Paul Atreides is kind of the son of the family. He's kind of the person in charge of this planet now too. He's kind of in a phase of his life where he's entering adulthood. He's taking on more responsibilities, and so now the family kind of is relying on him to watch the spice, to lead their troops when they're in battle, and make sure that if anybody wants to take the spice for wrong reasons, that they go down to that desert planet and make sure that they fight for their lives and that this element does not get into the wrong hands, because that would be a very bad thing if that were to ever happen. But overall, guys, I enjoyed Dune. It's one of those stories for me personally where, because I'm hearing a lot of people online comparing it to like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. I personally like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings a little bit better. I'm a little more invested in those worlds, given we've had a lot of films about those that got me more invested over time, gave me more reasons to feel invested in those worlds. Um, I enjoy the story of Dune. I really didn't prefer that David Lynch film that came out from the 80s of Dune. I really thought it was kind of messy and not very interesting. And you could tell it was based on a really good, well written book, but they just didn't know how to execute it onto film very well. There was just a lot of things about that interpretation of Dune I was not really a big fan of. But going over my positives and negatives of this new Dune movie, I think what Denis Villeneuve really got right with this movie was he really got a great cast and performances out of all his actors and actresses here. One person in particular I was really surprised with, because I don't hate this person, but at the same time I'm a little more. I'm not a part of the Jason Momoa love train necessarily either, but I really liked what Jason Momoa did in this movie. He really was a cool character. He definitely was a cool like mentor character for Paul Atreides in the movie. I liked how he kind of had a sense of humor, but he was also able to pull off some cool combat sequences and things like that. Really cool character, and it wasn't just Jason Momoa who did a good job. We got Timothee Chalamet here, we got Josh Brolin, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, all these people who always bring their A game in almost every movie they ever take on. Every person in this movie was a very phenomenal performance here. The cast and performances are all top notch in this movie. I also really enjoyed the set design of this movie. I know some people liked kind of how each royal family had their own different set design in that David Lynch Dune movie, and I'm sure the sci-fi original series of Dune kind of did something like that too, I'm sure, at the time also. But I really enjoyed what Denis Villeneuve and his set designer kind of chose as far as what these places look like, what the interiors and exteriors of places look like. I really think it's a very good achievement in set design here. So who knows, at the Oscars we might be seeing more about that and more nominations in that category. I thought this is a very well made set design kind of a movie. I also like the use of subtitles in other languages in this movie. One thing that David Lynch did in his film that I really didn't like very much is everything was almost told in a whisper in that movie, whether it was a character telepathically communicating with someone else or we're hearing the thoughts of another character. I thought that whole whispering thing in that David Lynch film was just not very good. It was definitely not a very good way to adapt Dune into a film. But I like how in this film they definitely use a lot of subtitles and hand gestures, and they kind of change the pitch of the actor or actress's voice when they're trying to do like an ability or in a voice of some kind that's different than how they normally speak. So how they use the subtitles in other languages, I thought was very effective in this movie. Definitely a better way to adapt the Dune novel than how David Lynch chose to adapt that aspect of the story here. Denis Villeneuve, I thought, also did a great job directing this movie. You can definitely tell he just loves the source material. Definitely was going through that Dune novel constantly and constantly, making sure that all the fine details are here on film. So I thought his directing was very good here. You can definitely tell he just loves this book from start to finish, and almost everybody involved with this film had a love for the novel of some kind or sort. So I thought Denis Villeneuve's directing here was just very top notch and very good. This also has great cinematography. I don't know if he got Roger Deakins to do the cinematography here. I think he did get somebody else this time. But I love what Roger Deakins did in his Blade Runner 2049 movie. But once again, he got a very good cinematographer here. Um, all the shots feel like something you could like frame on your wall or something. It's just they really feel like they're very professionally shot and just very everything you need to know about this world are basically all in the shots as well. Like you really get the impression that this desert planet that the Atreides family supervises is just all in the frame, and you're just kind of soaking it all in at the same time. And I really thought they did a great job with the cinematography in this movie. That also goes into my next positive point. I thought the world building was just very strong here. I definitely get the impression of what could potentially happen if the spice were to get into the wrong hands and how harmful that would be, and how it's important that the Atreides family gets full control of of the spice planet and things like that. So I thought the world building was very strong in this movie. For my negatives of Dune, though, I thought this was a very slow moving movie. It's a very very slow burn kind of movie, and it's very much you can definitely tell there this is part one of the story because they are doing Dune as two different films. This is definitely a part one of a two kind of a film here. They can definitely tell they're trying to keep all the really big stuff for part two, but as a result, this is a very very slow moving movie. I really wish the pacing was better here. It's a very long film to get through too. It's about 2.5 hours, very very slow moving, and I really wish the pacing could have been better in this movie. I also thought there were some moments here where there could have been more action oriented moments. There was just a lot of scenes where it's just characters standing and talking and moving around, and I thought there could have been something more action based to kind of give the story more energy and flavor to it. There's just a lot of scenes here where you kind of have to wait a long time for some of the action, so I thought that aspect of the story was also a little disappointing. And like I said, you can really feel that this is a part one of the story. They're definitely doing all the setup, they're doing all the character stuff. But as a result, if you're looking for the action and the spectacle and the sci fi elements the most, unfortunately, it looks like they are keeping that a lot for part two. So, unfortunately, that aspect of the film I thought was a little disappointing as well. And though I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer, I love all his scores. He definitely collaborates with Christopher Nolan, who is one of my all time favorite directors. I thought Hans Zimmer's score this time was just really unusual. There was like bagpipes and instruments that I'm definitely not used to hearing in a Hans Zimmer kind of score. And I don't know, there's something about this score in particular that was just more. It didn't feel like Hans Zimmer to me. It felt more like Hans Zimmer trying to express you on a different planet kind of a thing. It doesn't necessarily say Dune to me. So that is one thing I might give the David Lynch film more credit. Is I thought the score in that film was a little bit more effective for a Dune story. But I don't know. I love Hans Zimmer. It's just kind of an unfortunate misstep here that his score for this movie just wasn't quite on par with what I was hoping for with my usual favorites of Hans Zimmer scores. I also thought there was just more condensing that could have happened in this movie. There's just a lot of scenes where it goes on for a long time and a long time and a long time. And then you finally realize what the point of that scene was later on. It's just like, oh, that really could have been trimmed down quite a bit. I think this first part of Dune probably would have been more effective if a good solid 15, 20 minutes got trimmed out of it. And I think a lot of that could have been trimmed in the parts of the movie where um, its characters just walking or going to places, and there's just not a lot going on. So I thought there could have been more condensing in this movie, and I think that would have helped the runtime of this film as well. But overall, I'm going to give Dune an 8 out of 10. I think it's a good movie. I'm definitely looking forward to part 2. I really hope that the things that didn't quite deliver this time around are more effective in part 2 when that gets released. Like I said, great cast, great performances, great set design. Great use of subtitles in other languages. Denis Villeneuve's directing was very strong here. I love the cinematography of this movie. I love the world building in this movie. But unfortunately, like I said, it is a very slow moving movie. There is more moments I think that could have been benefited from more action oriented opportunities. This definitely feels like a part one with all the setup that they do in the movie. Hans Zimmer's score this time, like I said, was just a little unusual to me, and I thought more condensing would have helped this film quite a bit as well. So 8 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed Dune. I look forward to part 2 when Denis Villeneuve releases that. It's a good film. It's just not this great next Star Wars, great Lord of the Rings film that I feel like a lot of people are making this film out to be. But I think it's good. I think it's worth your time, whether you do see it in theaters or on HBO Max. I just make sure if you are going to do the HBO Max route that you are seeing it on a really nice big TV with good sound. I think that'll definitely help your experience enjoying Dune even more. But I'm going to give, like I said, Dune an 8 out of 10. It's a good movie, just not this phenomenal film that people are saying like it's the next Star Wars or next Lord of the Rings, but still a good film in my book.